DEI.
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 DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Big topic, big debate nowadays. Today, let's just break down all the facts and different opinions of what each side thinks. So today we're going to look at a panelist from CNN.
If race is not the issue, then why is DEI mentioned every single day as a solution to every single problem that faces this
Because of how pervasive it is,
and
how hateful it is to an actual conservative ideological view.
But do you think it is true that all of America's ills, from the plane crash to whatever it is, wildfires, due to DEI for real?
I think that if you believe in the fundamental principle of America, which is that we guarantee everybody an equal chance, not an equal outcome, but an equal chance, then trying to go around that principle, conservatives don't believe in it. And most people who believe in America don't believe in it, number one. Number two, the concept of not hiring the best person for the job in government or anywhere else has been repeatedly rejected by the American people, the Supreme Court, and everything else. And so
what do you get?
Yeah, as you can see, this panel is pretty heated. There's a lot of emotion going on. We're going to see some more clips where there's quite a bit of emotion. But just want to point out at this first clip, that is one of the fundamental beliefs of the right. The right believes that DEI maybe has a good intention, maybe it has good goals of presenting access and opportunity. But as he stated, the right believes that it often has bad results, that oftentimes there are people who are in positions of power who shouldn't be there. They have lower competence than others, but they're put there because of some diversity attribute in their lives. But I would like to see what the left has to say about DEI.
I just want to say that I think the premise that DEI exists and therefore the people that got the opportunity, perhaps because of DEI, are not qualified is a flawed premise.
Correct.
And I think that is what is so frustrating about the argument around DEI. We know in this country historically, and even today, there are still injustices in this country based on race, based on gender, based on ideology.
Based on who your daddy played
golf with. Yes.
Okay, that happens every single day. We know that.
But it happens every single day all over the planet.
That's
the
what I'm
planet
saying.
Earth. It is human nature. It is human in every single, and we're the best at it. We're the best at trying to
Donald Trump's our president.
Arthur, I guess that's exactly my point. I agree with you. I think that it is true that there have been preferences not for merit since the dawn of time. And that in this country right now, the same people who are going after DEI, which is about giving opportunities to people who have been historically marginalized, are just as willing to hire their friends.
Is that what equity means? Giving opportunity?
Right. So exactly what she was saying. The left, the fundamental belief of the left of DEI is to provide opportunities for people who have been perceived as marginalized, who wouldn't have opportunities. So somehow compensating for people's background, people's history, in order to give people the same opportunities as other people have. That's a big fundamental core belief of the left about DEI. But where the debate becomes a little sticky is the debate about equality of opportunity versus the equality of outcome. Equality of opportunity, meaning that you have the opportunity. The equality of outcome would mean that every diverse group has the exact statistic backgrounds and the same shared results as every other group. So that's where it becomes a little sticky. We'll see in this panel.
Is that what equity means? Giving opportunity or guaranteeing outcome?
No, it's giving access.
Because that's what equity means.
It's
a difference. There's a difference between equality and equity.
No, it's giving access.
I just want to answer his question because I think this is super.
Wouldn't talent and hard work give you access?
I think this is incredibly important for you to understand and for everybody to understand at home, okay? This is where I think we go crossways on this issue. You just asked the question, what does equity mean? Does it mean equality or does it mean access to opportunities? And conservatives want to define it a particular way, but you have to acknowledge, I'm asking you to acknowledge that people who believe in DEI do not define it that way. They do not define it as equality.
I think they define it as trying to guarantee outcomes, and I think they define it as trying to punish people they don't like.
Scott, that's
wrong race, wrong gender.
Speaking from more of the middle of the country.
So this is for me where the left's argument gets a little bit sticky, maybe not presented very well, because they're saying that they want equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. But many of the things that they'll say, including things you're going to hear, are evidences for equality of outcome. Equality of outcome meaning that they start saying statistics about, well, this group isn't getting paid as much as this group, and there aren't as much of this number as this other group. And these things are statistic things of we want a certain measure of results, a certain measure of outcomes. But equality of opportunity is much harder to calculate. I don't know if it's even calculable, if you can say if you have as much opportunity as somebody else. But we're going to see more or less argument here.
The conversation about DEI and woke and all of that sounds about marginalized Black and brown people who already are threatened seem to be threatened in this community, in this society, and they're not getting the same opportunities. It was the same thing with affirmative action. Went to UCLA, they got rid of affirmative action. Everyone said you got in because of affirmative action. When I graduated, affirmative action didn't take my test. Affirmative action didn't help me get to where I'm at today. It gave me access that I didn't have based on the opportunity that I lacked because of the circumstances I was born into, which had nothing to do with me, but the country in which we live in. So the reality is—
Have you seen the test scores of UCLA Medical, by the way?
My point being, Scott, is that everyone doesn't have the same access. People like to hire their friends. They like to hire the people that they like to be around.
Do you think they like to hire the best people for the job?
But I also think around the idea of diversity.
Yeah, so you can kind of see that there's some flaws, maybe. I mean, if you're looking at it with a strong opinion mindset, there's some flaws with both of these arguments. On one side, the guy on the right is like, hey, everybody has the same amount of opportunities and it's only based on your merit and there's nothing else. That's a little strange because everybody's in a different circumstance. Everybody has a different circumstance of life. But yet in her case, it's no, we need to make sure that everyone has the right amount of opportunity. The problem is, the question I always come to is, how are you going to do it? How are you going to make sure that everyone has the right amount of opportunity? At what point is there a number? Is there a status? Is there a ribbon that you receive when you have reached the opportunity equality point? I don't know. But we're going to see more of the debate.
The issue in this country right now is we live in different realities.
That's right.
I live in a reality where I know I do not have the same opportunity as you. I know I don't.
And you know
and
that
I know
too.
Let's go.
And you know that.
Let me just tell you about me.
I'm gonna let you finish, but I want to answer this.
I'm not talking about how you feel. I'm talking about how I feel. Me, a Black woman in this country.
But not in this city.
And I will run. And if you want
Look,
me
I'm a New Yorker, not in this city. You cannot say that. You can't say that in this city.
I'm not talking about New York. I'm talking about Ashley
let her finish.
Renee
Okay,
right here.
let her finish.
I got a law degree, a master's, and 2 bachelors. Probably more education than all y'all added up together at this table,
Fine
right?
by me.
And I have always been the least paid person on payroll at every institution I have worked in. And it's not because—
Even in the White House?
Even in the White House.
Well, whose fault is that? I don't think he worked for George W. or Trump.
Well, guess what happened when I was there? DEI.
Scott.
Look.
So super emotional debate. I'm not a big fan of a lot of arguing and people speaking over other people. It's not helpful really, but I understand it's television. You need ratings. I get it. You need drama. But her big thing is more of an anecdotal argument. It's an anecdotal thing of, I'm not even sure she's saying on statistically. I think she's just saying, I perceive that I've been treated less. I guess it is statistic if she says she's been paid less. So maybe that's a statistic that she could bring up. But then the counter argument would be, well, how do you know that you should have been paid as much as everybody else? How do you know that they didn't bring more value than you did based on work? You know, there's all kinds of counter arguments. But the point is, it's not really a broad-based statistic argument. It's more of an anecdotal argument. Very emotional. Very tense.
But let me tell you something about my story and my family's story is that we have faced discrimination. I have faced discrimination. I just said I was the least paid person, even in this moment sometimes, to my counterparts. It is just the reality of the country we live in. And I'm not saying, I do believe I'm qualified. I know I'm qualified. You won't ever tell me I'm not qualified. But the system that I live in doesn't matter about my qualifications.
I don't agree because
when 2025.
Oh, come
I don't think
on.
we're there in
Come
2025.
You can't
That's just not true.
This clip is just pointing out there's a ton of disagreement, and really it's anecdotal disagreement. She is saying, I perceive I am being mistreated in this way, and they are saying, we perceive you're not being mistreated this way. Neither one of those are really solid arguments on the broad-based debate. It is what it is. Yeah.
She's asking to be acknowledged like you get acknowledged. And she knows that that is not the case because she is a Black woman.
She had a high-ranking position in the White House of the United States of America.
Dear friend,
she is one of the most celebrated political operatives in the country.
There's
Do you know how hard I had to work to get that?
Do you know how hard the son of a garbage man had to work at it? So I'm just telling you.
I'm not saying that, but
talent and work ethic are everything, and that's why I think you're here.
It's not true. It's just not true. It's just not true.
Right. So this is important just to understand more of the argument versus the right versus the left. The right is saying, hey, we're already almost or very close to a merit-based society. At least we're closer to a merit-based society than the left thinks we are. And the left says, no, we're not even close. There are many people who are pushed down because of history, because of current practices, and many things to help compensate them, to help get them opportunities. So that's more of the main differences. Let's look at another clip here on News Nation about this topic.
If DEI isn't forced as a focus, you will not have representation and inclusion of minorities, regardless of foundation of merit. And that's why it needs to be a point of emphasis. What is your response to that argument, and how do you assure that everybody gets a fair chance?
Right. So here we got Chris Cuomo, and he did kind of bring up they need more opportunities in terms of people in the DEI categories. But he did make a new point for the debate for the left. The left says, hey, not only do we need opportunity, but we actually need diverse voices in government, in private sector. So if we don't have DEI things that encourage diversity in the workplace inside the government, then we're not going to have these diverse voices that we need in order to make sure that all of society is being heard. Every person, every group, every gender, whatever category, that they're all being heard.
DEI, and it's a construct of DEI, hasn't even been around long enough to even make that kind of a claim. We've had diversity of viewpoints, diversity ideas, not just in the federal government, but in the private sector for decades. The equity piece that was really introduced during the Biden-Harris administration at the federal level is the one that has a cause of concern because it ignores merit, it ignores skill sets, it ignores the ability to actually do the job and puts your demographic criteria at the front of the line before your actual qualifications. Look, I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to make sure that people who are getting jobs are qualified to do them. That is most important. But you can't put just diversity for diversity's sake ahead of qualifications. It's not 1972. It's 2025. We're in a different phase in the United States of America.
Right. So in terms of the voices, he's saying that, hey, we already have many diverse voices. We don't need a program in order to force companies, force the government to bring diverse voices to the table. Now, his point about on the end part of this clip was really interesting. So he was saying that it's not that diversity shouldn't be included when hiring someone. It's that maybe DEI has put diversity ahead of other areas. Like it's put diversity ahead of competency. So therefore, we're hiring people based on the main factor, which is diversity, instead of competency being the main factor. That's a key point of what the right believes. And then we're going to see a little bit of anecdotal from his own side, his life.
And what about people of color who are qualified but don't get the opportunities that people who are in the majority get because of the inclination of employers and legacy and other acceptance mechanisms?
Well, let's just dissect that for a second. There's always going to be a legacy bias because the truth of the matter is that people who have legacy or have different connections, they're going to provide those connections to their children. That's just a fact of life. That's not a white thing. That's a parent thing. Every parent does that regardless of their skin color. You could look in the NBA right now where you have a lot of prospects moving up who are now the children of former NBA players. Why is that? Because their parents, their fathers actually went through the NBA process, whether they were superstars like LeBron James or not superstars, but they were able to use their connections to help their children achieve a better path forward in professional sports. That happens in every industry in our country. So put legacy aside. The key piece is if you have the talent and the ability to actually walk in the door and earn a position, yes, you sometimes have to work your way up from the bottom. I started my career in 2003 out of college. Black kid in Southwest Florida, had no connections. I started at the bottom. I worked my way up. This is how it is supposed to work. But if you just supercharge somebody past the initial starting blocks, do they have the requisite skill to get there? And do they have the requisite experience to stay there?
Yeah, so this is very anecdotal. It's just kind of saying his own life experiences that he didn't need DEI. He just worked hard. It was merit-based, and you can accomplish great things without DEI programs in government, in the private sector. Next, we're going to go to another commentary, another clip. Talk about DEI from the left's perspective.
I think that we have obligation to educate the public as to what DEI really is, because number one, it's not affirmative action as some might think. DEI is about making sure that, say, a veteran may have a handicap, an injury from the services, and come to work for the federal government. DEI would make sure that that veteran has the I guess I would say the opportunity to work in a job, and they will place them in a position where they could accommodate that veteran and so that they can do their job. So DEI is about that and about providing services for workers. It's not about the color of a person's skin.
And it's not a quota program. Let's just be clear. It means that, and it also, I think, for a lot of conservatives, they believe DEI just means black people getting jobs. And so when they see a black person in any job, they say, oh, that person's a DEI hire. They said it about the literal elected vice president of the United States.
Absolutely.
She wasn't hired. She was hired by the American people. 80 million Americans voted for her, but they can't see through her race and gender. So it isn't just about hiring black people and women, right? It's about disabled veterans being accommodated. It's veterans returning from wars are also under DEI.
Right. So this clip is just showing more of the left's perspective of, from their perspective, this is not a program in order to get black people jobs, to get women jobs. This is more of just a program to make sure that everyone is being heard. Everyone who feels like they're being marginalized has an opportunity as every other citizen in the United States. This is the perspective of the left. A couple more clips I want to show you. This is really going to show you maybe some of the flaws in both of the arguments of how it's laid out. Not saying that either one is right or wrong, but I'm just kind of pointing out in just terms of the debate and the actual logic. Sometimes it goes, little off sometimes. So I do want to show that.
Understand what DEI actually is. It's Marxism by another name. It is race Marxism. It is trying to destroy what exists, strip it down, and put in a completely different type of society. It is race it's race preference. And so you have to ask somebody, do you think your skin color matters to your worth? It's one of the most important, simple, honest questions in America today. If yes, you're a bigot. I have no time for you. You should be like, no, actually, your skin color doesn't matter that much. Of course, there's racial differences. They don't matter, actually, really at all. They don't matter about your character or your soul or your agency. And by the way, how shallow. I mean, people are much deeper than how they look, a lot deeper. And just to kind of put people back into sectarian tribes is regression. So what DEI does, it is re-tribalizing society into a new India-style caste system where you can never escape. No matter how much good you do, no matter how much you study, no matter how early you work, no matter how much you try to improve your life, you're trapped. You're in an open-air prison. DEI creates America into an open-air prison that if you're white, you can never escape it. You have to constantly apologize. You have to constantly go on a knee. I'm
not saying I have a problem with what he's saying. I'm not here to give my opinion. You can think whatever you want to think, believe whatever you want to believe. The problem I have is that when you start using phrases like, this is a Marxist thing, you're a bigot, you're a this, it kind of takes it out of the debate realm. Then it's more of a political snowballs you're throwing at each other, and it's not really a logical conversation, because as soon as you label it, if it's a Marxist thing, if it's a bigoted thing, then what other debate is there? There's not really much of a debate after that. It's like, well, that's bigoted, that's Marxist. It's better just to go with logical ideas. This was the right, and the left does the exact same thing in a different way. We'll show that.
Right, and we need to understand that shift for what it is. Right, it is a decidedly racist and sexist and masculinist agenda. I think we need to be able to name it, Allie. We've been tracking prior to his election as president the influence of white nationalism, of white Christian nationalism on the Trump campaign. We were talking about its elements in Project 2025, and now we see it show up in policy, and we're not using the language. Why not? We're relitigating the mid-20th century. We're relitigating the Black freedom struggle. We're relitigating the women's movement. We're relitigating the gay liberation movement. We need to understand what's motivating it. And let's be clear. And I just have to say this, right? Every time the country tires of the quest for racial justice, it falls into this illusion, this fantasy of trying to get rid of us, of trying to move us to the margins, to banish difference. That's the only way a notion of American identity can cohere, is that whiteness must be its anchor. Whiteness and maleness must be its anchor. So we're right back where we have always been. This is the contradiction that has shadowed this country since its founding. And here we are barreling towards 250 years of America, and we're still grappling with the same nonsense, Ali.
Yeah, so that's just dramatic. I mean, when you say things like you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're homophobic, you're misogynist, it takes it completely out of the debate realm. You're not actually able to have a conversation after that. Because if that's the main point, then who wants to argue for a side that's racist, that's bigoted, that's misogynist? It's better to leave all those claims out and just to have an actual conversation. But that's the debate of DEI. So DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. I want to know what you think. What do you think about it? Are you for it? Are you against it? Do you think it needs to be done, but it needs to be changed? I want to know what you think. And if you'd like to see more of this kind of content, you could subscribe, like, comment. I'm Tyler Covington with Center Leaning News. I'll see you next time.